Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with your host, Jake and Scott. In this week's episode, we are talking Minden Mill. You may not have heard of them. They're all over social media. You need to be paying attention to them. So sit back and buckle in to the latest episode of the Bourbon Lens. Joe is the master distiller of Minden Mill, and he is spending some time with us this evening. So Joe, thank you for joining Scott and I here, 9 o'clock Eastern time, a little bit earlier on the Pacific area. So appreciate you joining us.
Yeah. The West Coast gets all the best choices in podcast because it's either going to be late there, in which case I'm still dealing with it earlier, or I get to go home early from work and do it in my garage, because I have to record at 2. So yeah. I thank you for that.
Well, we thank you for the opportunity to try the whiskey that you all have crafted there in Nevada, not Nevada, right? You got to say it correct. You got to say it like you're from there.
Say it correct. That was as somebody from the Northeast originally, and I know that everyone's. I'm just here doing my best job making whiskey from somewhere else. But as somebody who grew up in the Northeast, one of the first things I had to hard trade myself on was, it's Nevada, you dummy.
Yeah.
Right, it's Nevada.
We're good friends with the phrase. And the first thing they said to us when we got off the plane and got to Reno, when they picked us up, they were like, however you thought you said this, it's Nevada, and that's it. And then I was like, You know what? I get that. Being from Louisville, not Louisville, not Louisville, it's Louisville. I understand that. I can get behind that.
It's not Louisville.
Nope. Just like here in Kentucky, it's not Versailles, it's Versailles,
Yeah.
You got to put your Kentucky twang on it.
We decide which letters to pronounce.
There's a Genoa down the street, which is spelled Genoa.
Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah.
I do sometimes try to convince people who just come here that it's pronounced Nevada.
Just to really screw us up.
Yeah. I've been here a whole 2 years. It's Nevada.
Yeah.
So, Joe, that great segue. You're a natural podcaster at this point. So give us a little bit about your background. You were like, I've been here a whole 2 years. So how did you get there? How did you start creating, this whiskey with Minden Mill?
I've been doing this for 20 years. I got into distilling at the best, most luckiest time ever, which was early on. I trained under a guy named Steve McCarthy, he started a place called Clear Creek Distillery, and they really specialized in European style eau de vies. And that was if you want to talk about one of the most fun ways to learn how to distill anything is learning how to make fruit brandies, because you're really focusing on flavor and you're really understanding what flavors can be. And that can carry you through in any sort of design that you're doing, whether it's in a whiskey or a liqueur or anything. But the other thing that Steve was known for was he created McCarthy's Oregon Single Malt, which is the first American single malt ever released. And so these two things really influenced my career, and I have a deep passion for American Single Malt, which I want to talk about later on, because it means so much to me that Steve gave me my chance. And at that time I spent at Clear Creek kind of gave me a head start. And so getting in early, I was able to move to New York and work with several of the distilleries there, and then moved back to the West Coast, where I became head distiller and later master distiller for Hood River Distillers, who had purchased Clear Creek and a couple of small distilleries in the Northwest, including a great gin distillery called Big Gin, for anyone who remembers that product. And then just randomly one day I was called. I was called by the Foleys, who gave turned down. Head of and one of the proudest members of the team at Minden Mill Distilling. And that allowed us to be an estate distillery, getting to know grain, getting to explore all these aspects of what I have done in the past, but it's all new, that's just something that I couldn't turn down.
Yeah.
Plus it's the coolest distillery I've ever worked at.
Yeah. So what's it like going from a place where you're learning from an icon, really? And a lot of people don't appreciate Steve for that, right? He's an icon in whiskey, for, forging what is, one of the most talked about areas in American single malt, gaining steam and, picking up on shelves everywhere across the nation, to being able to now go to a distillery where you're really focused on terroir, the grain, the ground, right? you go from learning a craft now to like, I got to understand the agricultural piece of this to be able to produce the whiskeys that we're going to produce for, America.
Quite honestly, it feels more natural for me in a weird way. I have a degree in biology, in this idea that I can I get in and really understand the nutrition and really understand the agriculture of it is super exciting for me. I think this was my favorite rye harvest that we had yet, because I was just there every day doing, reading and doing moisture checks on the grain out in the field and watching how it grows and getting more involved. That to me is like brand new, right? Like Steve taught me basics of distillation, basics of blending and barrel room stuff. And then kind of learned how to get out there and do my own research when I was in New York. And I was really going over my head, but trying my best. And then the larger stuff I learned at Hood River Distillers was just about like this huge variety, because they made Pendleton as well as like HRD vodka for Northwest people. Be proud of that. Be proud of that vodka. That was this product that it was the number one vodka in the Northwest, and everybody would come up to me with the most horrifying story, but they said it with the biggest smile. So I mean, you can't have an icon like that and not be proud of it. But then taking this all back down to Minden, it was like, okay, what is the growth potential we can have here? And what are the new avenues that I've never learned anything about? And I was pretty ignorant about agriculture, still am. And learning about that is just right in my wheelhouse. And so I'm having a blast.
Yeah. Well, as an agricultural guy, that's a little bit of my background too, from schooling. I always love the fact that America's spirit is based upon a lot of America's heartland, right? Corn, rye, barley, right? And we're getting more and more of that here in America. The farmer is trying to make a comeback, it seems, which is awesome. And I think that's only going to lead to better grain and better product for us to consume on the back end. So, that leads us into, you talked about the rye harvest, and that's the first one you have kind of teed up for us here to talk about. So why is the rye, the best example of that estate alliance, of the estate grown experience that you all have?
So, I mean, this is something that where you have to take what I'm saying with the passion and the insight, but not so much the numbers that are backing it up yet. It's something that we're working on, and the University in Kentucky is working on with the Estate Whiskey Alliance. But this is a winter rye, and there's not a tremendous amount of variety in winter ryes, not in the same way that there is with heirloom corns. And so while everybody's getting their same winter rye from the grain itself from Canada or northern areas of the heartland in America, like you can get that rye there, but it's all rather the same sort of climate. We're at 5,000 feet here. And so growing this same sort of rye varietal and exposing it to these really intense summers, these really cold winters, this is the windiest place ever right here. And I don't say that lightly. Like I'm definitely always poo-poo on places for bragging about things that aren't too bad. Like everyone's like, yeah, wait 5 minutes, the weather will change. That is every city and across the world. But this place, really darn windy, and that can be hell on your grain. And so, given these harsh conditions, you get this quality of like candied orange that comes out in the rye itself that I've never seen anywhere else. And it really seems to be that fruit forwardness seems to be part of everything we do. Now it's just real, it's focused, and it seems to be something that we can't figure out how we're selecting for. And this fruitiness, the citrusness, this diminished quality of black pepper, it feels and seems unique to this region. Now, when I say that this is the details in this being worked on, that's where the University of Kentucky comes in, who just now, and we're, I'm a member of the research approval committee. I mean, I go on a meeting once every 2 weeks and, say a sentence. It's not much, but I can tell you as an insight to this, the work is being done now. That the grants are being put out there to understand like how terroir can transfer, and what are the indicators within soil, and what are the indicators within the climate of that area that might affect flavor down the road within brown spirits. And so 2027 is, I think, the expected. We might know something date. So, 2 years, come back to me. I might have an update.
Yeah. Well, it means we're just going to go ahead and pre-book that. So, Aaron, Dave, got to shout out Raptor Communications. Just go ahead and book that on the calendar. When that launches, we're the first podcast. Done and done.
You're the first up. I certainly would be proud to be here. I can introduce that as my as the stinger to get me back in.
There we go. I like it. So tell us a little bit about how this is made, right? Because there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, right? You got Kentucky style rye, which is low rye, high corn. You've got Indiana 95.5. You've got Empire rye, which you're familiar with. That New York style or Mahanganila. I think I got that right for the first time ever.
I've never gotten it right, so I learned something on that one. Thank you.
I butcher it all the time. So how's this made up?
So this is a 80% rye, 10% barley, 10% wheat.
Okay.
On this one, and so 80-10-10. It's all aged in 36-month air dried new oak barrels, number 3 char. And they're all from Siggy Moreau out of California. Love those guys. I mean, they're amazing, right?
Yeah.
The most important factor in purchasing a barrel is going to be air dried in the number of months.
Yeah.
That more than anything is a signifier of the quality of the oak itself, but increasingly of the effort that the cooper's putting into it. So to me, those are always going to be the best barrels. And I love the barrels that we use in working with them. That's also a philosophy that I got from Steve on that one. And talking to Nancy Fraley, one time she said the same thing. I'm not putting those direct words in her mouth, but darn close enough.
Yeah.
So this is really making up a huge deal of the flavor, but it's also being fermented in these 5,000-gallon fooders, these wooden oak fooders, which, as wood being somewhat permeable, even if we're cleaning it with our CIP, there is a natural colony of bacteria, of secondary fermenters, of bugs, at the industry term, right?
Yeah.
That are going to be able to come out towards the later part in that fermentation and develop a little bit of a house palate, house patina. And so it's all fermented in that same way. Then it's put through a continuous stripping still. So no cuts are made at that point. That's purely for efficiency of operation. And then it's put into a 1,300-gallon Christian Carl pot still. And this is a hybrid still, so we can select for columns if we want to make neutral spirit. But this entirely goes through just the helmet in the line arm going in. And you get this really interesting flavors that come out of all those combinations, but predominantly it's going to be that fruitiness. And that seems to try to go anywhere that our grain, like all the grain we grow seems to have characteristics of that. Now, in order to age this correctly, and this is going to sound really a little bit indulgent, and it totally is, and I'm happy to be this indulgent. This is a very difficult place to mature spirits, and I'm sure the phrase told you the same thing. If we were losing to Angel Share in their natural lack of humidity, we were losing 2 to 3% to Angel Share a month. It was just cruising out of the barrels. They have even slightly better conditions than we do. They have a longer grow season. I don't know. Maybe it's just as terrible as ours. It's pretty bad out here because I know we've all had to came to the same conclusion. But our rick house is all traditional Kentucky style ricks, and and we have it climate controlled to a weather station that's linked to in Bardstown, Kentucky. So this building at any point will have the same relative humidity, the same relative temperature as Bardstown, Kentucky, which gives it kind of the ability to age in its most, appropriate, where it came from, heritage, anchoring it in the past location. And could we have chosen anything that just suited well enough? Yes. But when you're given something that's where you have to make a choice and be creative, you might as well do something kind of fun.
Yeah.
And to us, that just seemed fun.
Well,
I'm also remembering, I'm hearing in my head our marketing folks that want me to stop referring to our climate around here as terrible or awful. It's challenging. It's a challenging climate. So, but it is, yeah, we have to make these kind of changes in order to make sure that we're aging appropriately.
Well, I think the other thing that's kind of cool about that is like you're mixing Kentucky with elevation, right? That's really cool too, right? So you're creating what we here locally say is like the optimal.
You're not going to believe this. We pressurized the whole building. No, I'm just kidding.
I was about to say. I was like, no shot.
No, that would be so dumb. No, you raise a really good point. I like that. It does, because that's going to have an effect on it too. Mm-hmm. Water boils here at like 202, 203.
Wow.
And so it does change a lot of factors.
So yeah, I think that's crazy. It's like uniquely, weather-wise optimal, but what do those nuances do over time? I think is super interesting. And this is the nerdy stuff that like people have to pay attention to. It's like how are you creating optimal whiskey in a suboptimal space to create whiskey, right? Like every 30 seconds, it was like psst, psst. It was like humidity just shooting out into the rickhouse, at the phrase. So it's like, I get that. Like you're just trying to control for what you can control for to be able to put an optimal product out in marketplace that you think, whether you're a Kentucky bourbon snob or you just like whiskey, you want to put an optimal product out there that everyone can enjoy.
I mean, that's what's so great. I'm going to take a moment of deep pride for my my state at the moment and say that the whiskey that's coming out of here is fantastic. The Phrase do an amazing job. There's really a little bit of a movement happening here, and it's kind of cool to see it's kind of cool to see people understand that that areas like this are really special. And there's a really great there's amazing influences that can come out of these climates that make American whiskey so cool.
Yeah.
I think also it's like what makes it unique. We hear a lot of whiskey stories and whiskey origin stories from a lot of different brands, but I always like to focus on what makes your whiskey unique. And it's not, like a set it and forget it. Like we distilled this really high, we put it in a barrel, we let it go for 4 years, and now it's in the bottle. Like it's not that. There's a lot more that has gone into it, whether it's barrel selection, obviously grain selection, climatizing your warehouse. That is a huge decision to make.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've got the other choices about proof and age and everything else that goes into the final decision. But those are the stories that I like, and I think that the whiskey consumer now really appreciates and looks for.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean this is kind of an interesting moment within spirits, but it's allowing some of the best stuff to really shine right now. And I think any moment that's challenging within any industry winds up creating people fighting, and it's an immediate plateau jump in quality right at those moments where people are like really scrappy and really trying to get out there and make a name for themselves. And this is one of those moments. And so I think it's cool that the stories that are coming out, there's a lot of really good ones, and there's a lot of really interesting perspectives on whiskey that I think are happening in this country.
For sure. And I think this is a great way to start off this tasting. This whiskey in particular reminds me of like a combination of 3 producers in one. So another kind of estate rye whiskey. So like the Merced Rye that's coming out of California. I think that gives me a little bit of that. It gives me a little bit of Old Potrero vibes. It's got like a malty characteristic because 10% malt, and you do get that little bit of a malty kick in there. And I do get a little bit of that Frey Ranch like cinnamony type of note that brings out a lot of red fruit to me. I know you said citrus, but like I think you could get to those like darker red fruits out of this as well, depending on how your palate's set up. So I think it's pulling from a lot of different like sensories for me.
One of the reasons I like it when people drink it in this order is that you do go from lighter, more citrus, more brighter to increasingly the next is a law cherry, and then it's some pretty heavy red fruits. And I think there's just kind of it really does kind of showcase what this one terroir really of the high desert itself it has in common between the two of us.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is a really
cool.
nice rye. I mean, it's fun. It's different. It's unique. It's not corny, but it's still got some sweetness to it. It's got body. Scott, I know you're a big corn guy. So how does this kind of tickle your fancy?
Yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed it. This is like the second or third time I've had a little pour of it, so I'm glad to go back to it. But every time I get that orange citrus brightness.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of body. It has like a nice viscosity to it. So I think it's 94 proof. Yeah. So, it's right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I would say it does drink a little bit more proofy than 94. I mean, 5, like something like that. But it's definitely a nice balanced whiskey that, drink it how you like it, right? You can get neat, rocks, cocktail, goes well all three ways.
Yeah, I'm pretty much a dedicated rock or rocks, sometimes 2.
Yeah.
2, 3 with a big pour. One,
Yeah.
I love that little expression that all whiskeys have when you just let the ice cube slowly melt. It just changes, and it's its own little story that seems so like it's just so not showy, but it's my favorite thing about whiskey in general.
Yeah, it's very cool. For a while it became very like pinkies out, neat only, but like there's so many things like water. Does so much to it. You mentioned Nancy Fraley, like you talked about like the slow water reduction, right? There's other ways to use water, which makes up a lot of, the process of this, to really kind of, come together. So it's really cool. So we've hit on the rye, but we're a bourbon podcast. So we got to talk about the bourbon, right? Like that's got to be a little bit of the star of the show here before, we contemplated at the end of this, we're going to hit on American Single Malt. At one point, Scott had us become the American Single Malt Lens, during COVID. So we're excited to get there, here in a little bit, but, tell us a little bit about the bourbon. How's it made? What's the mash bill?
All right.
All
so
the fun
that's
stuff.
going to be 60% of an earth tones corn. That's a dent corn, but it's in the Scott. This is, I think you'll like this. I wish I had some in front of me. I should bring some here. This is like a jewel corn. So lots of different blues, greens. I mean, it is rich color. This is a culinary corn. This is a cornbread corn. This is a masa corn. This is not ethanol production corn. In all those carotenoids, all those anthocyanins, that's the red and the blue tones that go from orange, green, blue, all the way down. That all also contributes flavor. It helps produce different esters. This, if you took it right off the cob, even when it's ripe, you bite into it and it tastes kind of like a potato. It is starchy and not sweet at all, but we can convert all that starch over and you get this really nice cola note from it. Right. So that cola is really going to be coming from this specific corn itself. Growing corn here, pretty rough. We will get frosts going in anywhere from May to September. So you only have about 90 growing days for corn. And so you have to get it right. Still at the same time, I mean, this is the heart and soul of this bourbon. Now, the other part is going to be 20% rye. This is a 10% oats batch on there for more of a mouthfeel, and then 10% barley. So 60, 20, 10 4 grain, high desert, Carson Valley estate bourbon. Aged in the same sort of barrels in the same conditions, fermented in the same conditions, treated process-wise exactly the same as the rye. And what you get from this one is, like I always tell people, cherry cola. This is like you get that red fruit coming in. You get that heavy cola note that's coming from that other corn. And I'll tell you right now, I want to plant more types of corn. I really start to want to mess around with corn varietals and do more and more and more. It's kind of my favorite thing at the moment. Learning about nutrition is really great. I was able to hack one of my wife's plants. The leaves produced it at like 4 times the size. over the 2 weeks she was gone, and I'm really having a blast learning this. But the corn thing, man, is huge.
Yeah. I mean, just look no further than New Riff, what they're doing, right? With all the heirloom grains, right? Like it's really cool to see what you can do with different varietals and different flavors. But you know what's really interesting? You talked about the citrus note. This one changes. Like it's, you have that richer kind of candied citrus. This moves to more tangerine type notes on the nose, which is kind of cool. So the citrus is still there in there, but the citrus changes, right? To more. People
get apricot a lot on this one.
Yep. I would say right in that vein as well. But for some reason, tangerine, probably because I've had like, those little mini cutie mandarin tangerine things lying around the house and eat a bunch of them.
Oh, well, they're amazing.
Yeah, and they're easy.
If you
to
get
peel.
a good bag. A good bag is the best. A bad bag, oof.
Well, when
get a bad bag,
the worst.
You got to feel for like the peels. If the peels feel like they're going to fall off easy, it's a good bag.
Yeah.
If they feel hard, chuck that thing deep into the bin.
And while we're on fruit picking lens, I always go by weight too. So if one bag is real heavy, I figure it's got more sugar in it because sugar weighs more than water.
I like that.
Go by weight as well.
See,
what's your produce tips? You got anything for us?
My wife does the shopping, I do the cooking, so it's kind of like Iron Chef. She brings what I need to cook, and then I decide what to cook. So, but it's interesting to find out like this is such a unique corn varietal because typically when I hear that like heirloom grain, heirloom corn, some off the wall color corn, I get real like earthy notes.
Mm-hmm.
But with this, I don't really get that. I get the sugar content. I get the I don't know, mouthfeel, the body, I think cherry cola is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I would say almost like Dr. Pepper. Like it's got like cinnamon and like different like notes that kind of like come in and out.
And
barrel influence too.
We could split the difference and say Mr. Pibb kind of has a Mr. Pibb thing.
Or you could say Dr. Pepper cherry. Dr. Pepper cherry. Like it's 23 flavors plus one.
Well, they call those machines the freestyles.
Yeah.
Pick like 30 different combinations and then you end up with a really crappy soda.
Hey, back when you were a kid, though, you just hit the suicide. Boop, 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 boop. And then you were like, you went back, you took a drink of it, you were like, you felt amazing.
Incredible Hulk.
Exactly.
We used to call that witch's brew.
Yeah. I mean, half dozen one way, half dozen another.
Too.
But no, this is enjoyable. Scott, what's the proof? Or Joe, what's the proof on this one?
Same, 94. Right. You had mentioned kind of mouthfeel and the viscosity of it. And this is kind of one of those things that happens and you want to imagine every single step and everything you do is you have plenty of time for. And when we had to pick a proof, we did a batch at 92 and we started to see flock. And mind you, it's like that shouldn't really be possible, not to my knowledge, but it was something that we were witnessing. So we immediately called the printer and we were like, oh, we're going to make it 94. And we had to make it kind of change in the last minute. We've stuck with 94. And I think it's a kind of distinct, but I also think it's cool that we got scared away from flocculent just for presentation's sake. Like it's just all the oils, all the complexity, that's what makes the flock. But if it's there and it's suspended at 94, I mean, it does give it a greater viscosity. It does give it a little bit more mouthfeel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the proofs. Sign me up.
I will say that I had to take this bottle off my bar intentionally when I figured that our podcast was not going to be scheduled for a little while. Because I was a little bit afraid that I wouldn't have any left by the time the podcast rolled around. So I actually moved it to my secondary bar. So I stayed away from it. So it's good to go back to it.
Yeah. That's killer. I really find that enjoyable. I'm saving a bunch of my sample for later, where I can just like play around with it. The rye's good, but that bourbon is very good. Very good.
One of the best problems a distiller can have when showcasing two whiskeys like a rye and a bourbon is that you get a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Like and that tends to be what we get. And man, is that a good thing to have. I'll also say that I think that the bourbon, quick shout out to John Crumbly, our lead blender and barrel guy. Like John has as much to do with this as anyone else, if not more, and make sure that I also make this one. I'm a member of a team. We got a really good team, and I'm only one of them.
Yeah.
But we're getting better. We're getting better at the bourbon. I think every batch we're realizing we have this one figured out. Every single production we're getting better at.
Yeah.
I will say it's kind of nice that you don't have to decide. You know, these aren't $150 bottles of bourbon and rye. Like the rye, I think is what, $50?
Yeah. We are punching way above our price point.
So it's like you don't have to decide. You can grab one of each.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, please do.
Yeah.
Velocity, baby. It's all about velocity.
Yeah. ABD, always be depleting.
Yeah. Oh man. No, that's killer. Now this leads us to our second passion, which is American Single Malt, which would be one of your first passions, right? With your time at McCarthy's in Hood River and all of that. I picked it up and nosed it. I do enjoy the nose already. But you know, from your point of view, right, working with, you know, the godfather of American Single Malt, was this something you always wanted to create when they approached you? Were they interested in American Single Malt, or did you have to kind of pitch this hard? Like, how's this come up? Because I know not every brand is all on the American Single Malt train.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the entire distillery was originally built for American Single Malt. That was kind of the idea. And that was quickly learned that wasn't going to be financially the smartest move. That's how you get into bourbon and rye. But the passion for single malt is as old as the distillery is itself. And that's entirely kind of leads to some of the more, I think, important choices in how we make it. I'm going to just so while you taste it, and I'll give you a little bit of my own personal speech in a moment. But yes, one of the cool things I told you about the Bourbon Rye distillery. Well, there's a whole separate distillery, whole separate building just for single malts. In our single malt distillery, we use 2 Forsyth stills, so traditional single malt stills, like really beautiful, beautiful pieces of equipment. The other thing, and this is something that I was trained on initially, is that we're not a direct fire distillery, but direct fire is the original way that all of this stuff was cooked. Clear Creek, when I started, was a direct fire distillery. I've lit fireboxes a bazillion times and gotten things going and shut them down safely, but there is an inherent danger in producing a vapor next to a flame. So doing so and possibly exploding the middle of Minden, Nevada was not something that we wanted to do. It leaves you with the fact that you can get down to low pressure steam, and low pressure steam is probably going to cook around 120 degrees Celsius. And that's wonderful. You can make fantastic stuff. But if you want to replicate the higher temperatures of direct fire, you need a different system. And our system uses, instead of heating water, which will produce temperature, and an increasing temperature will produce increased pressure, increasing the danger, we're actually heating our system with mineral oil, the same sort of stuff that you'd cure your butcher block with. And that goes around that goes through the jacketed stills, and we can cook at 185 degrees Celsius. So significantly higher, and most importantly, above the Maillard reaction. And the Maillard reaction is between 140 and 160 degrees Celsius, and that's what puts sear on steak. It's what makes creme brulee something other than custard, is the Maillard reaction. That I think is the clearest way of describing how this one temperature band is so important. And that's what we cook at. We were the first, as far as I'm aware, we were the first distillery to use this system. And it's also what heats our tasting room as well. So it's always running. It's always, once you get it going, you just kind of want to keep it going. Yeah. Because that thermal can really store some energy. And it's also one of the ways that, you get to be LEED Gold certified. It sounds like it's a tremendous waste, but it's actually more sustainable to get that going once it's in full operation. And once it's distilled, I mean, we're going to send it off to our rick house, which is also climate controlled, totally separate building. And this is going to be tied to a weather station in Belinda Loch, Scotland, which is the most stressed out series of condensers and fans you've ever seen in your life. Like they are having a rough time every day in the summer, but it's still notably chillier in there. And you can see the little puffs, the little clouds coming out of the condensers as it goes in. All aged on traditional dunnage racks as well. And this is a big tradition to use this is very important to us to follow tradition, but use technology. On a personal basis, all right, all of this stuff is cool, and I love our single malt. But single malt to me will always be about saying thank you to Steve for giving me my break in this career. I think I arguably have one of the most unique takes on the whole category, because for me, it's always been about making sure that his name was known. And one of the reasons people don't talk about him so much, he always gets a little forgotten, is could be really darn grumpy, but he was wonderful. And he was the first man that gave me healthcare. And, he always stood up for me when I was trying to make my name, and he always helped me out. And Steve McCarthy was a good dude.
Yeah.
And we lost him a couple of years ago, but once the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission was put together, I contacted Steve Hawley, and I think it was probably within the first year. I was like, what can I do? How can I be here? I want to help. I want to help. I want to help. Because making this whole category known, it puts us on the world stage, but in the coolest way possible, which is if you have all these little micro expressions within Scotland that are reflective of like the climate and the culinary history of those regions, and Scotland is the size of Delaware, or I don't actually know how big these two things are, but I am assuming they're the same. How big is Delaware? But if you do it on that scale and then you explode that to the size of the U.S., you have something really cool that's going to happen as a large whiskey experiment. So 20 years from now, American Single Malt is going to be broken up into these wild little culinary things. I always encourage people to try one of the first really great, insane ideas, which is the Striker by Andalusia down in Texas. And it's all the barbecue woods that they smoke it with. And that's what I mean. Like, that's just cool as hell, like that's not going to happen in any other category. So, there's a lot of good stuff going on, and I'm glad that started that with Steve, and I'm glad he gave me my break.
What's really interesting is, the parent company, Foley Family Wines, is also an importer. Mm-hmm. Right. And I just recently tried the Loch Lomond. I don't know how to say it.
Loch Lomond.
Yeah, thank you. The 10-year, and so like that's kind of fresh in my mind. And this transports me to Scotland, right? And I think this is the biggest compliment that I could give to you, me personally, is it reminds me of drinking a high-end Scotch. That's what this reminds me of, but with more, like it has that American more. It's got more vanilla, more caramel, more fruit. It's just, everything's just a little bit more exaggerated. So that's my big compliment. I really like this. It's straightforward. I think a lot of people would enjoy this. Whether you're an American single malt or a single malt drinker or not, I think this is an enjoyable sip.
I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, this one, we 9 times out of 10, if we're all together and we're having on Thursdays, because we work 4 10s, and so sometimes on a Thursday we might have a glass together at the end of the shift, and 9 times out of 10 it's going to be the single malt. I think it's the one that I think distillers as a whole, as like a culture, there's so much room within single malt, in that we're making so much room for each other in terms of style, in terms of what it's going to taste like, in that everybody's expression is very personal. And whether it was me inheriting McCarthy's, like that still became deeply personal to me. And that just doesn't quite happen in any of the other spirits at all. But since we're all so willing to share it, and anyone who ever buys any of my products, please share. That's what they're for. I think when we all get together, our single malts are the ones we showcase and get really excited about, because we're really sharing something personal. Because we kind of, this is the folks out there now we're the ones that kind of built the category, which is wild,
Yeah.
I can't believe that I got lucky enough to be at the beginning of the thing.
And is this finished, unfinished?
Oh, yeah. Oh, finished? Well, so it's a combination of different barrels. It's going to be some new American oak, some used bourbon. Initially, it was a hodgepodge. There's some Four Roses in there. There's some Eagle Rare, I think. There's some Buffalo Trace. But later on, we start bringing in our own barrels.
Yeah.
So some used bourbon. It's going to have also some Oloroso sherry. PX sherry, depending on what blend and when. I don't think there's anything at the moment, but that's always the thing that might pop up in there. And that's the great thing about single malt too, is that like you can make little tweaks and everyone's going to be really in on the idea.
Well, so this reminds me of Tamdu. Like that's my head is going to Tamdu. And was lucky enough to talk to Gordon Dundas, who does a great job for Tamdu. That sherry note is just kind of humming right in the back pocket. I mean, this has got me thinking. I mean, I don't know how old this is, but I mean, it gives me 10 plus years.
Oh, it's 5.
Yeah. I mean, I think that new oak gives that, the illusion of the older, feel.
And also, I'm also going to really toss in a line for the calandria system, because that ester production that happens at those higher temperatures, like that's the same ester production that would normally happen as oxygen interacts with the alcohol in the barrel. So you kind of come out with a little bit of a handicap by using this still. Like it just makes things rich. Even the new make it's already along the way flavor wise.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I'm sitting here just past the bottle, and there's a bottle of McCarthy's single malt sitting over there. So it's kind of cool. But I want to drink this with like a cigar, because this is like big time like tobacco notes to me.
Oh yeah, the sweet tobacco, the cherry tobacco stuff in that is wild. I enjoy an occasional cigar. But then at one point I was in Florida with our sales guy, Todd, and Todd is great. He's really into cigars. And we went to a new cigar place every night for 5 nights, I think. And I mean, I had a blast, but that single malt is in those sort of flavor characteristics, what you're describing and that I find in our own single malt is how I go for it as well.
Yeah. People need to discover that. I mean, if you don't know about that, you need to find that real quick.
I'm glad that you guys are liking it. I mean, this is one thing I love right now about the whole industry, and I mean the whole drinking culture of whiskey culture is. I feel like people have the camps have broken down a little bit. Like where I hit my mic. Sorry about that. I think the camps are breaking down a little bit, and we're all kind of enjoying each other's stuff a bit more lately, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. No, Scott, this I think goes to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival house for cigar night.
Yeah, I need to make my packing list.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a Kentucky American Single Malt, but we'll enjoy America anytime.
I mean, you guys got enough
this one's really
whiskey
good
out there.
Yeah.
It's how close are you to the bar? Do you ever get out to the bar?
Up in Cincinnati.
No, they're out in Muhlenberg County.
No,
we've not been there.
No.
Oh man, it's great.
I've heard of it now. Now that I got what you're saying, yes. But Muhlenberg County is down a ways from us. It's a 3-hour drive, probably.
I figured. I didn't think it was close.
No.
But it's at the opposite end. But still, kind of like great whiskey out there.
Yeah, no. There's so much whiskey. The explosion of whiskey, even in the state, is impressive. And, I think the whole state got behind Kentucky bourbon, which was really cool. But I think bourbon is, we're going to be 250 years old as a country. Like, bourbon is a young spirit compared to the world stage. And so I think we have a lot to refine to be able to get that message to the rest of the world. Yeah,
totally agree. I mean, it was, it's also as old as this country. I mean, was it George Thrope? I think was the last name, was the guy who made the first corn whiskey. And it was like 5 seconds after he got off the boat in Jamestown. He was like instantaneous with it.
Yeah, found corn. Let's cook it. Let's make it happen. Yep. No, this is great. Joe, I think the biggest compliment. I'm not going to speak for Scott, but I think I know where he is. Just keep doing what you're doing. Like, I know you all are marching to your all's own drum, but like, just keep beating that drum that same way. Cause I think each of these expressions will attract a different type of whiskey drinker. And I think they'll all find their one that they will just go back to again and again. And for me, there's two of them that I'm going to be going back to again and again. So thank you for sharing a dram with us this evening.
I'm so happy to be here, guys. Thank you so much. And that's very kind of you. So, we got good stuff going on here.
No, it's great. Scott, you got any parting shots for Joe?
No, I mean, I thought I did a little bit of research before this podcast outside of just drinking the bourbon or the whiskeys, but you guys have such a cool angle on things. So it's awesome that you did this podcast, but I'm excited to hear future podcasts that you're going on, because there's a lot to tell. You've got there was a lot in this episode that, people need to hear about. So very cool.
Well, you should come on and visit too. We can show you a good time.
I mean, Dave, you heard it here first.
Podcast trip.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to tell him.
Yeah, part 2.
Foley Spirits, it just doesn't have to be Bourbon Lens. We can just get everybody there. We talk about it all. But no, Joe, like in all sincerity, really appreciate you all sending the whiskey, spending time with us this evening. And really, guys, if you are not checking this out, I feel like people think we're influencers and we just kind of like will tell you like what you want to hear. I'm serious about this. Like, go grab one of these bottles. You're not going to be upset with any of them. So thank you for sending us these samples. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to keeping up with your story as you all continue to grow.
Total pleasure to be here. Anyone who's looking for our stuff, there's a shop locator on our website, mindenmill.com. And there's some shipping depending on what state you're in. You can find that out via the website. And then, but support your local small independent bottle shop.
Yeah.
They're good guys. We need them.
Definitely.
So. Yeah.
Well, really appreciate everyone listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.
See you all. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bourbon Lens. Make sure you're connected with Scott and I via social media on Instagram, X, and Facebook. We'd love to connect. And if you're more the professional type, follow us over on LinkedIn. If you want to know more about Bourbon Lens, make sure you're subscribed to our weekly newsletter, The Weekly Pour. For exclusive content and more, check out Patreon. Follow us there at Bourbon Lens. And last but not least, on your favorite podcast listening app, make sure you're subscribed, because every Monday, Scott and I release a podcast, and we would love to have you here listening to the newest features and the newest whiskey news. And until next time, cheers.